All right, Dean, this week we got an episode that's a sequel of sorts.
Yes, it is.
We're expanding the BlueStar Nation cinematic universe.
Sequels? We're getting into sequels now.
Yeah,
yes.
Next, we just need some spinoffs, a Disney Plus series. I don't know what else we got to do. So a couple of years ago, we had Intel's Kristen Call on the show.
Yes,
to talk
she's
about,
awesome.
Yeah, to talk about retail modernization. And, a lot's happened since.
Yeah, a little bit.
A lot of innovation, a lot of changes going on in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
2 years is a lot of time
That's
in
a long
this
time.
space.
That's right.
So we thought we'd revisit that conversation. This time we've got Intel's Rob Risany joining us, along with ELO's Luke Wilwerding. We drug him back on here.
Yeah, he was just here, wasn't he?
Just a couple months ago, yeah. But, we brought him back again because he seems to be game for it.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about what does modernization mean as everyone starts to actually explore AI and try to figure out how it might fit into their business.
Yes, we did.
What are we still looking to prove or disprove? How do partnerships like ELO's and Intel's make selling that modernization easier? What do you need to be doing to work at the SMB level to convince folks of this kind of stuff? We're talking about talking to toddlers, talking about home brewing, deathly robots.
Yes. We're covering a lot.
We got a lot of good stuff.
We got a lot of good
We're not
stuff.
going to miss it. I'm
That's
John
right.
Martin.
And I'm Dean Reverman.
Welcome to Blue Star Nation. Blue Star Nation podcast is brought to you by ELO and the M51 rugged mobile computer, which delivers a 6-inch Full HD touch display, Android 14 OS, a powerful Qualcomm 6490 octa-core processor, integrated NFC, and an optional 2D barcode scanner.
Yes.
From enhancing retail store operations and warehouse management to ticketing, boost efficiency with the M51 mobile computer. All right, let's talk about some features here.
Let's do.
You got a 13 megapixel rear camera.
Yes.
8 meg front camera.
Yes.
It's pretty impressive for
absolutely.
a retail device, a purpose-built device.
Yep.
Chemically strengthened glass, pretty important. IP68 rated. There's optional accessories, including a device and battery chargers, rubber boot, scan trigger handle, and much more. And of course, you get ELO's enterprise-grade support for security, provisioning, OEM config, and much more.
Holy moly.
There you go.
All you need right there.
Lots of good stuff in the
Yes,
M51.
sir. Yes, sir.
So to learn more and see additional specs, check out the link in the show notes or contact the Blue Star ELO team. All right, we got our couple returning guests on the pod today.
Yes.
Like superstar guests.
We do.
Both of whom
This
have been
is
on the
top
pod
shelf
multiple
stuff.
times.
100%. Yeah.
This is another one where you and I just get to sit back and
we do?
relax and let them
Yes.
do most of the work.
I might have a comment or two.
All right, fine. I'll allow. We got Rob
take it
Risany.
easy. Yeah.
We got Rob Risany, the director of Edge AI and Solution Aggregation Intel. Rob, welcome back to the show. What's been happening in your world lately?
Oh, nothing changes. The nice thing about the semiconductor industry in the current world is there's no anxiety. Everything is stable.
Status quo.
It's all status quo. But I mean, the great thing that certainly we're seeing right now is, massive uptake in the AI PC, which is good, which is great news. I mean, the middle of a Windows refresh is always an interesting time for computer companies. So you guys remember that from the early days of things.
Absolutely.
So, it's neat. It's a fun market right now, also just because of the rise of AI impacting everything. So it's keeping me busy, that's for sure.
Yep.
There you go. And our other returning guest, who was a very recent returning guest, was on just a couple months back, Luke Wilwerding, the VP of North American Sales for ELO. Luke, welcome back to the show. What's happening in your world right now? Or is that a loaded question?
I'm going to go with that's a loaded question. I would say lots of things are going on in the ELO world. We recently announced that Zebra will acquire ELO. So that's some big news that will continue to expand Zebra's connected frontline vision and add a lot of capabilities to their portfolio. So we're excited about the news. It will create a lot of new opportunity throughout the channel. And again, eager to get going. It's still early days. It was announced this week. And more to follow.
Yeah. If for somehow that's a spoiler alert for you when this episode comes out a week and a half later.
I think everybody's heard it.
I don't know that anybody you're not keeping up well enough if we're the ones breaking the news
exactly.
here.
That was a lightning flash through the whole channel. Yeah, everybody knows. Yeah.
All right.
That was interesting. It's interesting when that announced. Obviously, both Zebra and ELO are great Intel partners, and of course, it definitely generated a flurry associated with how does this impact different things? Where's the collaboration opportunities? So I think you're right. I think it definitely changes the landscape, Luke, of what's the edge compute landscape look like at this point? The consolidation is, often a leading indicator of other emerging changes that might be happening. So who knows? There might be other big moves underway from other places.
There you go. True.
Well, let's talk about how that relates in the world of retail and modernization. And this is interesting to me because I feel like we don't do like sequel episodes very often, but I feel like this kind of feels like one in a way because we had Kristen Call from Intel on a few years back, about 2 years, a little over 2 years ago, to talk about retail modernization. And I thought, hey, this is kind of the 2.0 conversation because a lot has obviously happened in the last couple of years.
This is true.
We're talking about a lot more AI. One of the things that she noted in that episode was this idea that she said conversion is table stakes, and that the computer vision, the AI stuff, that's the next step. That's what's going to get us where we need to go with retail modernization next. So maybe, Rob, you can kick us off here. Are we there? Are we at that next step? And what does that modernization mean as that AI starts taking hold?
I think it's interesting because of the timing of when that hit. Machine vision was an AI workload that had a lot of appeal based on the fact that we had existing infrastructure of cameras that was scattered around. We had, back in those days, remember, we had Amazon was trialing out those stores where you could just walk around and the cameras would follow you. There'd be thousands of cameras in a little 10 by 10 box, to track whether you picked up celery or carrots. We had one of those at my house back in Naperville, Illinois. So I think there was a lot of buzz around that because the concept that AI inference could do effectively a very accurate job of what we've always relied on human eyes to do: recognize objects, recognize behaviors. Are we there yet? I would say that specific side of technology has been box checked as practical, but only in specific situations and in use cases. Okay, so we are, because, for example, of the privacy issues, because of other adoption pattern questions like, hey, this week we're thinking that everything should go, self-checkout. And then all of a sudden everybody's like, oh, but our shrinkage just exploded. We have to get rid of that. Changes the priorities of what you do with really fancy emerging tech like machine vision. I think what's right now very interesting is machine vision is just one of the AI workloads important for retail. And so, I see a lot of our partners, whether it's on software or on the hardware side, looking at other AI technologies, agents, for example, generative AI capabilities that are there, RAG, retrieval augmented generation, to help customer service situations. Those technologies are now creeping in simultaneous into that discussion of modern retail. So it's not about machine vision is now we're there. And so great, on to the next thing. It's now AI is bubbling into everything, which is making all of the steps of retail be, are we ready for AI? Because if you're not, you're going to get run over by a truck.
Luke, any other thoughts there?
Well, I'm going to agree with Rob just on sort of the evolution here. And I'll look at it in three things across all the workflows, whether it's vision, whether it's inventory, whether it's all sorts of, again, different use cases, depending on the business and what they're trying to accomplish. They're moving to more intelligent workflows. And that means that there's AI involved now. It's just a natural fit as you look at machine learning and what it can do to help evolve the human type interaction, the human thought process to help work alongside. So we're seeing a lot of the manual processes move to an AI process. However you want to look at that, it might not be front and center to your frontline worker, but it's there, it's happening, it's providing those suggestions, it's assisting. Another thing that's happening because of that, though, and again, this is a part of the vision side, these are workflows as well, but we are starting to see the upgrading of infrastructure, the edge, the endpoints, and people are moving to what we'll call AI readiness. And so that's a big thing there because they might not know immediately what's going to have the right ROI outside of a labor tool that they're acquiring because it's got an AI component to optimize. but they might say, hey, I know that my store might have some agentic AI component in the future. How do I make sure that I'm prepared for that? How do I make sure that I have the connectivity, the bandwidth, the cloud infrastructure? They're thinking through all of these things now as they're starting to implement the low-hanging fruit that's been proven. There's an ROI there. The last one we don't talk a lot about, though, is the evolving roles and the skills in the workforce, because this is going to change the dynamic of how retail, hospitality, restaurants, et cetera, operate with this newfound logic and optimization of labor workforce and the new tools that are afforded to them. How does this truly integrate, and what type of people skills are needed to ensure that we're capitalizing in a non-threatening way? Because you have so much data now. If I have a vision analytics tool above a worker in a manufacturing, a restaurant or other, and it's saying, oh, employee 3 works faster than employee 8, we've got an employee issue, right? Well, maybe you don't. So you got to be really careful about that. And then how you approach an employee or a statistic, let's say, and use that intelligently for managers and others in leadership roles. So there's just so much to think through as we evolve through this.
I liked how you positioned the idea that, modernizing retail for its supply chain to front of house, it's worker transformation, it's changing workflows. AI, it's sometimes a little sacrilegious as a technology person to say there is no AI market. What there is there's the retail business that gets transformed by technology waves. That's what we're in the business for doing, is how do we have technology that can make people's lives better, or deal with the shifts in demographics or the shifts in, people's expectations. When's the last time you went into a restaurant and had a really nice meal and waited for the bill for 25 minutes? And effectively, your comment up on your Yelp review was, I'd never go back there, terrible service. You might have had the best service ever, but I don't have the ability to pay the bill right away. Was that driven? It's driven your mobile payments business. It's driven the necessity for mobile requirements. The expectations are different. The experiences people expect are different. And that's where I love your comment, Luke, about are our systems AI ready? Because it doesn't matter if you haven't ideated it yet. You either, one, should be, and two, if you haven't and your competitor does, you better be prepared to move quick.
Guys, do you feel like this is an area where resellers need to up their game? Meaning, Luke, I think you threw on the table, they got to understand connectivity. They got to start understanding platforms. They got to understand how all this weaves together, and it's a much more comprehensive solution. Maybe the tier 1, resellers out there, they have enough resources to put behind that. But you start getting to below the surface a little bit to the tier 2, tier 3. I don't know. What's your opinion? Do they need to start up in their game, or do they need to start learning this language? Your thoughts?
Let me take this, and I'm going to turn it to Rob here. But I look at it to say there are areas that are proving ROI. And those areas oftentimes are more packaged. If you need a labor initiative, you need an optimization for X workflow or X task that's being accomplished, software is accelerated very quickly to say, we've got ways to plug something in to accomplish this. When you get to the bigger vision strategies, when you get to things that are starting to, how do I have a conversation with an AI in a store? How does that pane of glass start to operate with AI and the real-time data that can affect it? The agent models and others, these are very complex things that are still evolving. And when I look at that evolution, I would say that implementation of packaged, ready type AI platforms, they're moving fast. They're being installed, they're being talked about. It's out there, it's going. When you get to the bigger ticket type things, where Rob had mentioned installed cameras, low-hanging fruit, you layer on an AI component to that, you can start analyzing the data. But as you get to shrinkage and other areas, and yes, they're out there, it's happening now, but where the market needs to further its direction, let's say, is creating packaged opportunities to where a retailer can go and just buy this off the shelf, have an understanding the ROI, who else has done this, to ensure that they're confident in their strategy and direction as they look at their capital spends and others. Now, the preparation side needs to happen because it's, in many cases in retail, you're making an 8 to 10 year decision. You have to be able to scale that because the AI is coming, right?
Right.
But I think that when you look at the bigger picture, there's still a lot of bespoke development, almost science project type things that are happening. They're happening fast. They're making massive impact. But those have to be packaged in a way that everyone can adopt that with confidence of sorts if it met this certain criteria, et cetera. So I would say that as you look through upgrading infrastructure, endpoints, and the edge, it has to happen now in preparation. It should be a part of the conversation and direction. How it's going to be leveraged and implemented, these are things that I feel are working its way out. Again, the software piece has matured. It's happening. It's continuing to accelerate. There are bigger ticket items, though, that will have just profound impact in food services, labor optimizations, and others. But some of those packaged things are still being built and finalized as you look at mass adoption. But Rob, I just gauge where your head's at in terms of that talk track.
Yeah, it's an interesting challenge right now, because you layered it through the question of what does the VAR, what does the reseller, what does the integrator have to do, and you immediately said, oh well, the tier ones have it together. It's about the tier 2, tier 3s. I'd argue with that.
Not so much. Okay. Yep.
Yeah, I would, and the reason is I think what we have in the world of the way that businesses work, we have this is the way we do it. We have our motion. Here's where we're comfortable. And what's changing now with AI infusing everything at such a rapid pace. Remember, we weren't having this conversation at this level of detail 5 years ago.
True.
It was still white lab coat data scientists dealing with things. Okay. That's what we were dealing with. And then somebody released ChatGPT and the world turned upside down. Everybody's 401ks went crazy, if they had NVIDIA stock, and we're all going, oh crud, how's this going to change my world? My grandma asked me whether or not AI is going to, steal her money, and the people down the street want to know when they get an AI infused golf club. It's all the buzz. The interesting thing is, for the reseller, I think it forces change for them to decide what they're going to be experts in. That's the crux of what the integrator and reseller has to do, is decide, am I going to be the master of the outcomes that are relevant in, say, the retail space, or in warehousing, or in supply chain, whatever the sector is. But we're talking retail modernization here, so let's talk retail. If you decide to be the master of outcomes, that means you better know all the industry research. You should know the trends. You should understand the personas of who lives there. You should understand the dynamics of all the things going on that are being talked about, not just at the C-suite, but on the ground in the grocery store, in the shop, in the truck that's being unloaded, to get into a Target. You should understand that, and the outcomes and the people that are caring. That's one side of the equation. The other side is, based upon those outcomes, how well do you identify, if that's what people want? I want to reduce shrinkage. I want to have faster checkout. The question that you have to also then say is, how well are you defining the capabilities gaps for your customer? If their problem is, I need faster checkout, how good are you at posing the question to your customer? Well, how do you anticipate doing that? What are the ways you've looked to apply technology? Why aren't you just hiring more people? There's a lot of things that you can then do in the discovery process that set up basically the requirements definition for going and talking to a bunch of vendors. Because here's the great thing. Vendors like, Elo, Zebra, Honeywell, take your pick, okay? Intel. We love to go in and talk to you about our wares. That's what we're experts in. It's what we get paid to do. What we count on the reseller to do is go in and diagnose the customer's problem better than anybody. That's where they have to up their game, because technology is going to come and go. Now, let me take one little follow on to how quick the technology is changing. Software moves through 3 life cycles. First, we have platforms that do something. Then people take those platforms and they make apps. And then people roll up the apps and make suites. Usually that'll take 7 years, 8 years. It happened in the Internet of Things. It happened in business intelligence. The phase we're in right now is going to happen in half that amount of time. So that means the people that have platforms right now, I agree, Luke. Right now, the golden ticket is the app. Who can come up with an app that solves a problem and reduce the cost of implementation, cost of sales, and roll it in as a standard thing? Okay, that's going to be the winner. And then it's going to be, who's doing the acquisition and rolling them all up and then streamline the purchasing process. So, that's, I think, where this market's going. And that's certainly the role we see as for aggregators, is help partners figure out and make those choices.
Yeah.
Rob, I like what you said there, and I'll just kind of summarize where I was heading with this. It's just, we're at a point where people are building those apps. And how do resellers find the apps that are packaged in a way that they can bolt in to solve the problems? As you said, they need to identify the problems. And I think the market's evolving to who's building the apps that are not just bespoke, but built for scale, that they could integrate to different POS platforms and in different types of environments. And that's the evolution. And we all need to keep our ear to the ground to figure out who are the winners in this space, so that we can communicate broadly to our partners to ensure that they know what they can implement, the ROIs that it creates, and the problems it solves.
Another thing that I'll throw on the table here, I agree with that, is, my old adage, follow the money. When I look at this question from 2 years now, hence, and we talk about retail modernization, one of the things that we talked about back then was retail media networks. And so it's this concept of, online advertising was at risk, is at risk, all the tracking that you can do and all the data and all the analysis that goes into the online world and advertising, there's now opportunities in store, in retail, and some of the technology that is rolling out, specifically machine vision and AI, were seen as their nirvana to kind of make that happen. I still think that's a journey right now, but Luke, maybe you could comment on this, but it's the idea of brands and the dollars that they have behind advertising helping to fuel, like literally fuel, some of this adaptation and or science projects and or proof of concepts more quickly, right? Because they see, if I can start extrapolating, not through PII, not through personally identifiable information, but that person's 25, female, blah, blah, serve ad, demand comes accordingly. That's playing a play. So following the money, where this advertising, and there's a lot of money at play there. Any comment there, Luke?
Well, I think it's you follow the pane of glass, let's say, in any type of public access environment. The idea that you're going to take advantage of the advertising component, you're going to leverage an AI to ensure that you're managing through what are the most applicable type messaging and the interactions with your customers. And as we see the idea that as AI becomes more pervasive and the agent models start to emerge, you will likely have more conversations in store with a digital associate. And that digital associate creates this immense opportunity for product suggestions, for product information as well, and providing that unique value add. But this idea that I could also do promotional marketing and advertising through that same type of channel is front and center there, and actually would most likely pay for that investment. When you look at just your typical product selectors, endless aisle, your price checker and other, these are oftentimes table stakes. They're out in the market today.
Right.
But what we're not seeing is that ask a plumber. We're not seeing, hey, find and locate, particular item, which there's been some wayfinding, but AI creates this immense opportunity to really fine tune what's available in stock and how do we bring that value to a customer. But there's a pane of glass. And so it creates this advertising opportunity as well. So I would certainly agree with you. I think this is evolving right now as we look at the agent model. I have not seen something that's fully baked to create this agentic type experience in store at scale. But I will tell you, it's coming, and it's coming in a big way.
Yeah, so let me comment on that. So you posed the question through the lens of the digital advertising transitioning from, the online experience. Let's take advantage of it, as you put it, Luke, the pane of glass, the different panes of glass. Let me tune that phrase a little bit. Right at the point of experience for the customer, and point of experience, even just for the customer, it's also for the employee, for the truck driver delivering the goods, okay? And so wherever there is that convergence of something happening at a specific place with a specific person doing something, that's where the opportunity for disruption happens. And what's interesting is sometimes that disruption doesn't happen from inside the sector. Like the advertisers in your example are looking for ways to become relevant. Well, remember, who pays for the end caps?
Sure.
Ford doesn't pay for the end cap.
Right.
Coca-Cola pays for the end cap. Okay. Maybe it's not that we're dealing with it's not just dealing with the advertising, it's rethinking the monetization of the technologies that live and support our operations. Why in my warehouse environment, for example, if I have a dedicated relationship with a trucking company, maybe the trucking company is who brings the robot in to unload the truck because he knows that there's less chance of damaged goods if the robot does it versus your forklift driver who doesn't seem to know what he's doing. Different sectors can also be stepping into this, which is where I think that resellers' opportunity to really become the master of the entire ecosystem of the customer, who their suppliers are, who's their real customer, who walks in the store, who goes to the customer service window and stands in line for 3 hours. Where are the places where new kinds of AI-driven experiences could streamline things and who can we get to pay for it?
There you go. That's right.
Rob, I'll make a comment on that. And obviously, Rob, with Intel, you're very tuned into some of our strategies, but we're now building computers that are at the edge that have a true AI capability. And so you start to look at folks with headsets that can easily ask the retail AI, where can I find this? But you go back to this marketing question, and if someone's asking where they can find a particular item, the AI can instantly tell you, you should also suggest these 3 or 4 items to go with that. And it's in your ear providing these suggestions. Could those suggestions be funded by Coca-Cola? Could be funded by, I'm looking for, hey, Jack Daniels. You should find a Coca-Cola in aisle 3. But these types of things are a reality, and they're driven through AI, and the workloads should exist on the edge. And again, I haven't seen these yet, but they're forthcoming.
I think they are forthcoming, and here's the use case I need, because I'm the world's worst shopper. Like, fashion is not my thing.
You need the thing in your ear telling you what to do.
And if the women in my life are not with me shopping, I usually come home with a boatload of stuff, and then I got to take like most of it back. Right. But to your point, Luke, wouldn't it be wonderful if in the associate's ear they got like Ralph Lauren AI or whatever that is giving real time clothing, to little old me, type of a thing. Not to mention a smart mirror or something like that. That Ralph Lauren or Giorgio Armani would pop up and say, no, you can't do that.
What a funny example, because certainly there's been AI innovation in things like, smart dressing rooms.
Right.
Let's change the way you try on clothes. Let's change the way you, let's talk about bespoke clothing being made for individuals based upon their specific unique topology, unique framework. That's the nice way for me to put that.
Yeah.
The opportunity's there. It starts with, how big's the opportunity? Is it something that somebody can build a business on? And that's, I think, the challenge that I think this is the reason why people like Luke and people like me are like, at a minimum, you should be coaching your customer to set the groundwork. Because even if now you don't consider yourself an early adopter, don't make the stupid mistake of saving $20 on your checkout device and get something that's underpowered. Because guess what? In 3 years, you're going to be ripping it and throwing it out. Because Luke and I have seen that. Very recent purchases, and it's good for our business. It's bad for their bottom line.
Yeah, I hear you.
Definitely. Well, Luke, let's start talking some expectations of the actual retailers, because like Rob mentioned earlier, there's a lot of science experiment stuff, but there's also a lot of cool practical stuff. We've already been bantering about a lot of really cool, smart ideas that can really make a difference and can get people into new places and new opportunities for revenue and bringing customers in. But at the end of the day, we got to make sure that the actual end users, the retailers themselves, buy into this.
That'd be helpful.
And believe it. And not just hearing all this, I'm like, oh my God, everyone's talking AI. I'm so sick of it. I'm just going to go back to what I always do and just sell some clothes or sell some beer or whatever it is. So what's happening when you're out there talking to retailers? What's the kind of stuff that we're still working to dispel, disprove, or to prove to them, to the skeptics that are out there, and help them understand, like, hey, there is a legitimate path forward here. Here's what you need to understand and know and believe in order to realize that AI is the future that we should be moving towards?
Yeah, it's a complex question of sorts. Just the reality is they want to see an ROI. They want to see something that is going to have, of course, an upfront cost, but what's the maintenance cost over time? And so you start to look at where they're going to put their spend. I am focused on the path of least resistance. And I'm a bold believer in some of the vision-related applications and capability based on the proliferation of cameras and this idea that in a kitchen environment, we have the KDS displays. I can have a downward-facing camera that can optimize for food preparation, food accuracy, labor, let's say, accuracy, but also efficiencies of sorts. And that's not a big lift as long as the computer itself running the KDS can manage the workload. And this goes back to this being prepared for this AI future. I start looking at the shrinkage side, and I might be a part of a massive scanner company here in the near future. And so I start to look at scanners and the idea that many of these scanners have dual cameras. How are we leveraging those dual cameras for AI optimization? If I'm doing a self-checkout process and I can immediately tell through scanning that that's a banana, even though, or I might be 10 keying an item, can I already get someone 3 selections that are fairly accurate based on the idea it's a banana? I just have to pick which banana it is. And can I optimize that through an actual lane? And then you start to get to the self-checkout lane. If I can just tell the color of a piece of fruit, and I think there's 250 some items in a grocery environment, can I optimize how quickly I can get through a self-checkout just based on putting the right color of vegetable up when I go through a self-checkout? And again, these are really, I almost call them comedic answers or comments, but the reality is they actually speed up the process. And if you can get back some time and optimize that, it pays for itself. And you start looking at the overall number of transactions, it can pay for itself in a month or two. And all you have to do is buy the right computer that has the capability to process that vision-related workload. And then it's an application that, again, many customers can develop. So I start to say that, and again, we could go all around here in terms of traffic flows and items people are, the vision applications that are already out in existence in terms of looking at the broader camera usage. But I'm focused on this idea of self-checkout and the general checkout processes and how to benefit both the employee and customer and gain some time back, drive-through optimizations. I go through food packaging, but these are all things where a camera is a $40 camera, let's say, and don't quote me on that, but hypothetically, these are low-cost USB-based cameras. As long as I can plug them into a computer that can manage the workload, it's an additional application that I could plug into my existing platforms. And again, there's a lot of, is this real? Can I do this now? The answer is yes. Are there, and we talked about this before, but are there the applications that I can go buy this to do it now? And I would say no, the market's catching up to this. But I would say that everyone's got to be on the lookout for these things. They are going to happen. And I geek out, and resellers should geek out on this thought that if I'm dealing with a checkout lane or a self-checkout lane or another interaction point, there's going to be a vision or a workload that's going to need an AI-capable computer. And so if you're selling into those environments today, based on just some of the brief examples that I've provided, you've got to be looking at this immediately to prepare for it. And these are the conversations I think, Rob, I know you and I are both having, and we're having those with end customers today as well as partners. And so it's happening. So hopefully that answered the question. I went around a couple different places, but needless to say, excited about the future.
Rob, you got any extra thoughts on that? Like the skeptics and improving it?
Yeah, I think that the important context in dealing with the conversation here is remember who your buyer is and who they're influenced by. The buyer who's responsible for store configuration is influenced by industry stuff, what's going on in the real world. But oh, by the way, they're also influenced by what's going on inside their operation, inside the priorities being set by others. And so, for example, I was at a customer event just this last week. It was a more hitting mid-market style customers. We had a variety of different companies out there, but it was a small retail chain happened to be in attendance. And the comment that was made was very interesting because it was, everybody's like buzzed about AI, but they don't have any idea where to start. And so the important thing to remember is that on that small side, there's this impetus, we have to do something, what should we do? And that doesn't necessarily mean we have to go in and deal with store performance issues. Sometimes what's happening right now is the IT managers are going, I got to wait for us to get started. We have to do a Windows refresh anyway. We're going to give AI PCs to our marketing department so they can do dynamic video generation without having to upload my cloud costs anymore because it's ridiculous. I don't want to keep writing that much of a check. And then you've got the flip side, you've got the CIOs of the giant retail chains going, okay, remember everything has to be AI ready. And oh, by the way, that's also a cybersecurity requirement. And so all of a sudden these new requirements float all the way down to the edge. And they're like, well, wait a minute, you're telling me I have to have AI-driven virus checking for every single one of my edge computers? I don't have I need a different budget for it, you know? So there's these stress points that are going on between OT and IT that are really being magnified right now because AI is coming out of the world of IT first. And a lot of the technologies that we sell into retail, you know, are OT things. It's like, what's the ergonomics of the hand scanner? You know, that's not an IT consideration. That's a people using hard goods. You know, do you drop it? Well, you don't drop a server. You care about whether or not someone's hacking it.
Ruggedized servers, yes, no, right, yeah.
So it's and I think that's the other thing to be remembering is there's different players influencing this retail buyer that our resellers have to be fluent in, or at least aware of, so they don't get flanked.
What's ringing through here is that, you know, the expectation we need to dispel is that they don't need to prepare. Yeah. You know, and the compute on the edge is definitely, you know, part of that. And I'm reminded of the conversation we had with, I think it was Dusty over at Scale Compute, or Scale Computing, or maybe it was Jeff. I think it was Dusty. It was the one who would reference, you know, you don't want to rely on the cloud to enable on-site types of AI, you know, machine vision and stuff like, because the latency is just not going to.
Even seconds is too many.
Even seconds is too long. So you really have to prepare, which is what we're hearing here, for the oncoming AI solutions.
Yeah, definitely. Well, so then we've all touched on the compute aspect here, which I think is obviously a big important part of this entire conversation, is having the right technology and the right compute to get us there. And that was something that Kristen mentioned on that previous episode, that delivering the right platforms, the right software, it's only as good as the compute power that you have at your fingertips.
Yep.
So, you know, Rob, talk about that here. Let's talk about this Intel and Elo partnership. And how are you guys working together to accomplish making sure that everyone does have the right compute power, accelerate their modernization? Again, if, you know, they get these good ideas and say, this is something I'd like to do, and everyone's in agreement, that would be amazing. How do we get them there with the right compute, and how are you guys working together to make that happen?
Well, let's start with the comment from our current CEO. A little humility is a good place to start. What are the requirements coming out of the people delivering the pane of glass, where they're like, this is how I'm thinking about the problem. This is the markets I'm trying to serve. Now, how can we work together? Now, at the same point, we'll also be like, hey, we're seeing the world of silicon move in this direction. We're seeing requirements come that Elo won't have thought about, that we're able to embed in, that then in their roadmap they're able to adopt. So I think the partnership that goes on between our organizations has to be really tight, because we have to be so far ahead of the customer's buying journey. Purely at the silicon level, you know, our investment in the latest CPU technologies for the edge, you know, they're all about being AI enabled. You know, new capabilities that, frankly, some of the workloads aren't even developed yet that run on them. Some of the software stacks are still evolving, but it takes that long. To get these things into the market, it takes a long time to make those kind of things the standard approach. Once they're there and the software is tuned for it, aligned to the experience, it's as necessary as, you know, color graphics on a screen. We take that kind of thing for granted. It's not that old in the context of the human engagement with the store. And I'd say the other thing, that we're also seeing is changes in power considerations. How much heat are we generating? These are all issues that directly impact how things deploy. Like, for example, it's a nice theory that you can spend you can solve all your problems by spending $500,000 on a NVIDIA cluster and just stick it in your data center. But you're going to be hard pressed if you've got a 500 store deployment, putting one of those servers all over on the edge. It's not practical. It costs too much. You don't have the power. And oh, by the way, you don't have the air conditioning.
Right. to handle it.
Keep the thing cool.
Which goes back to power.
So that's, I think, some of the main things that we deal with. It's just like your power efficiency, are you ready for that workload? That changes then the ways that people can ideate the form factors, and what we can have these systems do. Frankly, some of the best ideas then come from our hardware builders, and we're just an ingredient inside.
Luke, any additional thoughts there on the partnership?
Well, we've had a long-term partnership, and it's been very successful. And I would say when we look at this new AI world or the evolving AI world, we're addressing it with Intel in partnership in 3 areas. And it's at the endpoint where we need the right horsepower to drive a vision-related workload. We need the right flexibility that Intel provides to ensure that we can meet current and future needs at those endpoints, whether that's a self-checkout, a price checker, you name it. We want to make sure that is prepared now and for the future. And then you get to the edge, and the edge is a little more complicated. And so kind of the discussions here in terms of latency, et cetera, we do believe that many vision-related applications will reside on the edge based on where the inputs would come from. And so we're now launching, and it's not public yet, but we will be launching small form factor computers at the edge to manage these types of workloads in partnership, again, with Intel. We're also taking another approach, and this is a big iron approach. It's not public yet, but you will see a product that will launch that is a edge, almost in-store server class type product that's intended to run the language models. It's intended to have the horsepower at the edge to do some of the agentic AI requirements, to provide that agent, to do things that would have a latency through the network. It's not going to do everything, right? But it's going to do the store level workloads to be hyper efficient. So again, we're looking and investing continuously in AI across those 3 areas: the edge in 2 form factors, the lighter vision related workloads, and some of your basic language type models, your big iron type, which again would run your agentic and other at the edge with, again, support from a larger network, let's call it, and of course the endpoint. And I think much of this battle is still at the endpoint in some situations, because if I'm at POS, self-checkout, if I'm at a customer interaction point, modernizing that overall journey, I'm going to need to do that at the endpoint in many cases.
Good stuff indeed. I don't really have a lot to add there, but I will add one thing that I know both these organizations are passionate about, and maybe we could riff on this a little bit there, gentlemen, but it's around solution selling. So when you think about everything that we've talked about here is all wonderful, but when I think about the reseller, the traditional reseller and their typical sales motions, we collectively, and I'm talking about Intel, Elo, and BlueStar, believe that there's a need for training of the sales organizations that the resellers have to more of a solution sell, setting the spec, outcomes-based selling. I don't know, Rob, maybe you could start off here. All this is wonderful, but it requires sales,
it's a different
individuals
mindset a little bit,
to go in there. It's absolutely a different mindset. I think we already kind of touched on it a little bit. It's not just setting the hardware. It's understanding and solution selling. That's what's going to enable, I think, a lot of the resellers to start formulating these type of solutions and engaging with them. I don't know, Rob, your thoughts there, and because I know you guys are both passionate about the sales side of this, right?
I think we're cut of the same cloth in that regard. I think probably too many scars, having either managed people that didn't do it right or not doing it wrong ourselves at one point in our pasts. I'll start off by just saying I think the challenge that the ecosystem deals with is lots of built-in assumptions about the ways that they think their business works. And that would be one of the challenges I would make. First assumption resellers make that I think is a big problem is our customers buying from us transactionally. There's no such thing as a transactional buy. There's a transactional sale, but there's never a transactional buy. It can be as simple as my printer is running out of ink. I need to order a new ribbon. I will call BlueStar. That is a solution purchase. They are solving a problem in their world. You might have to service it in a high speed, high volume manner, but customers always buy a solution. If your salespeople are just taking orders, okay, you should really invest in agents in your website and get rid of your sales team, because you don't actually need that anymore. The job of sales is to help the customer understand their own problem, okay? And understanding their own problem does not start with vendor technology. It starts with identifying the gaps in the capabilities that are enabling them today. The good news is vendors absolutely love to get into discussions and differentiate their products.
Sure. Yeah.
And at some point, sometimes the reseller, that's their job. They have to talk about the value of their wares, because that's what one of the stages of the sales cycle. But at the front end of the problem, it's discovery. It's identifying the needs. The other big thing I'd say that we have to reorient the reseller into thinking about, it's this idea that, you have enough pipeline. The short answer is you don't have enough pipeline. Most resellers overestimate their close rate and underestimate the length of a sales cycle. And here's the thing: if you think your sales cycle is super fast, especially on something like, updating a POS infrastructure or something like that, the odds are that means you're late to the sales cycle.
True.
Your customer is already thinking about it 3 to 6 months before you even showed up. So the whole role that we think about what sales has to do is we have to become really experts at elevating our situational awareness, our ability to listen, and our ability to lead. And I think that creates an opportunity for resellers, regardless of if you're hyper technical or just business guy or whatever, take a leadership position. What's your point of view? What's your point of view with, why you partner with Luke at Elo? Where's your podcast, Mr. Integrator? The ways we engage with our customers has to change, because the ways our customers are getting their information and getting the ball rolling on solving their problem is really different. So I'm very passionate about it.
Yeah.
And Intel has huge programs there to support it.
Anything else you wanted to add, Dean?
Nope. I just know there's passion there, right?
Well,
and I think as a channel, we need to pivot and understand the complexities of these solutions that are coming down the pike, and how do we enable our teams to facilitate those things.
Yeah, and I think to Rob's point, and yours both there is like I've always been a big something I was taught when I was in sales is this idea of asking a lot of questions, asking a lot of why. Like act like you're a 3-year-old who is just learning about the world. Like
why?
Hey, I need a new printer. Why? Well, because my old one's broke. Why? Well, because it's in a part of the business where it gets a lot of grease on it. Why? Like, because we make fries there. Why? You just keep asking questions, and eventually you get to something maybe that's a little bit bigger than just, I need a new printer. And that can potentially open up a whole conversation for a new solution sale. Instead.
That's right.
Maybe don't be quite as annoying as that 3-year-old, but
you did have shreds of miles there. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. I have experienced that in my own life.
Yes.
I would just add one thing here, just to say, people buy from people. And if you're the reseller that's working with procurement, you're transactional. Yep. You just have to be honest with yourself. You're a transactional person, and you should be concerned because the value that you're providing your customer is replaceable value.
Yeah.
As you look to, and we've all said this to a point, but as you ask the right questions, as you work to solve the right problems, you're going to have to get way, way deeper than procurement. You're going to get into the business side. You're going to touch on the marketing side. You're going to touch all aspects of an organization to really understand their problem and how they operate. And that's when you start to create unique value. That's when you can start to bring in the right people to solve for their unique problems, et cetera. But again, I just go back to this idea, people buy from people, but make sure you're selling to the right people. So I'll leave it at that.
Brilliant. Yep,
love it.
That's
Absolutely love it. All right, we're going to wrap up in a moment by having Rob and Luke talk a little bit about the modernization pitch to SMB in particular, since we know a lot of our folks work in that particular area. But first, a quick note of what's happening around BlueStar Nation. Look, if you're needing a little something extra to help you win a deal or add more revenue to your own business, I think everyone would appreciate that.
Pray tell.
BlueStar product promotions are the perfect place to start.
All right.
Our hardware partners want to help you win and go out and find those new deals. They want you to give you some product discounts, cashback promos, rebates, trade-in programs, and many more.
Did you say cashback?
Cashback.
Who doesn't like that? Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly.
So even better, we keep track of all these promos in one place, and we keep them updated regularly, so including some that are exclusive just to us here at BlueStar. So you can find these current offers by going to BlueStarInc.com and going to the promotions tab, or find the link down in the show notes. And while you're doing that, take a quick moment to do all the things we ask you to do on every one of these podcasts, and a lot of you don't do, so call
Now's
you
your
out.
chance. Yeah,
I'm not going to say any names, but I know who you are. Like this episode, subscribe to our channel, download from your podcast platform of choice, leave us a review, go check out our BlueStar Nation blog, send your ideas into us. I'm happy to drag Luke and Rob back on the pod again. If you got some ideas of things you want to hear them talking about, they'll do it. I might have to, I might have to bribe them a little bit, but
incentivize them.
Yeah, we'll get them back on if we can.
100%.
And as always, reach out to us, send us your ideas. You can email us directly, nation@bluestarinc.com. All right, let's wrap things up as always with a little VAR value. And again, I mentioned this, the SMB level, because I know there might be a lot of folks still that are listening to this, our own, customers.
Oh yeah,
and people
absolutely.
In that VAR integrator MSP community.
For sure.
That are like, all right, but I'm skeptical too. I work at the SMB level, and a lot of these mom and pop stores and just little regional chains that I'm working with, they don't have the ability to get to this level.
Maybe
if we're still saying the tier ones aren't necessarily even doing it right yet, what are we supposed to do? So, Luke, kick us off here. What's the pitch to them? How do we talk modernization? Are there some start small things that we can reach out and ask and recommend that they pursue and do now that can lead to that bigger innovation in the future?
And this is something that we face on a daily basis. And part of this is just, it's education. So I'm educating my team, and my team helps educate me in terms of where our customers are going. And I'm going to keep this on the AI thread, but where they're going with AI. And so me as a manufacturer, I need to know what partners I need to work with to provide solutions and experiences for my customers. And I'll translate that to the reseller working with SMBs. You have to know the partners with the packages, with the software, with the combination of software and hardware to create these experiences that work for the SMB markets. And when I look at some of the AI capable low-hanging fruit with proven return on investment, inventory demand forecasting, predictive maintenance, labor optimization, quality assurance, process automation, loss prevent, all these things, they're front and center. But if I was a reseller who focused on the SMB, I would say, what POS platform are you running? What ERP are you using? What plugs into these types of platforms where I can build opportunity almost immediately with my customer base selling into this new AI world that will also pull hardware into it? What's the new scanner that I'm going to require here? What's the new mobile device? What edge compute do I need to manage this updated workload? But these are the things that I would say, if I was the reseller, I need to know this market. This market's happening. It's happening fast. And I have to understand the partnerships that can enable these things and pull in this value to these SMB type customers.
The interesting thing in the essay, I gave an example before about, being out and hearing from somebody. I'll go to the phrase you even used earlier. You really have to learn how to help the partner set the spec. And so part of that also starts with set a hypothesis. This is what I'm calling the modern retail environment. And I can collaborate with BlueStar and Elo and Zebra. That's now very easy. To say, what are the things I should be thinking about? And have what amounts to, think about it almost like a golden RFP, ready to go. Like, you know what? We've pre-thought out the questions you need to be asking. Here it is. Here's your roadmap. In fact, what I'd like to do is read this document that I wrote that describes how this is, that has thought leadership from key players that where you can learn it. And then there's 5 questions you can ask at the bottom. And then based on that, how you answer those, I have 3 things that you can do to get started. You've got to simplify it for SMB. You've got to package it through the lens of the way the buyer actually buys. Land, expand, scale. So many organizations misunderstand that SMB people are stupid. They're not stupid.
Nope.
It's that they have a lot to do and they don't have a lot of overhead to help them do it.
That's right.
So what they're looking for is an easy button to get something done fast. And that's where you have an opportunity as a VAR to come in with, here's my Pelican case, with an ELO touch display system, a Zebra handheld device preloaded with software, and I can get it up and running in 3 days in your environment to test out modern retail of the future. And if it works really great, I can roll it to your other 15 stores in the next 30 days.
Yep.
That's a heck of a message.
Yeah. Land and then expand. Yes.
There you go.
Right. That's the key with that kind of a market. And that also demystifies the AI bit problem as well. Because now what you can do is you can compartmentalize it and not make it this weird thing. You send it through the lens that Luke used. No, we're just trying to reduce increase your warehouse efficiency, so that, the fresh strawberries get put on the shelf and they don't get thrown in the back room, next to the toilet paper. You don't want that. So I think that's the element that we can do. And I guess the good news there is, I think that's the BlueStar value, is as these partners are thinking about how they take their markets apart, they should just be leaning right into BlueStar to package up those solutions and make them fast and easy to deploy.
Yep. Yeah. And scalable.
I think, Rob, you make a great point there that, like, if you're just running in and just screaming, like, I've got AI, we've got AI. Do you want some AI? I'm going to shove some AI in here. Where can I put the AI? I'm going to put it over here, over there. That is going to turn off a lot of people very quickly and very easily, even if that is ultimately what you're kind of doing.
Right.
But to your point, if you're walking in with that case and you're saying, hey, I've got a solution. We had this discussion. You told me what your problems are. Here's the solution I have. Let's get it set up. I'm going to explain to you how it's going to work. And then, along the path, you can explain to them, and by the way, the reason why this is going to do what we said we were going to do here is because of this AI application platform. The AI part doesn't have to be the entire focus. It can just be the incidental part, because at the end of the day, that's all they care about. Does it work? Does it make my job easier? Does it make life faster? Is it going to help me sell more things and make more money? Great, let's do it. I don't care what all the buzzwords that are in it, as long as it actually works.
Yeah. Sage advice. Sage advice. Yes.
There you go. Luke, anything else you wanted to add there before we move on?
No, great discussion points. And again, I think the battle's won with the SMBs in many cases. So just get out there, be passionate, and bring some value.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, let's wrap up as always with what's on our radar. This is the fun part of the show. We get to talk about anything in the world of tech, innovation, science, business, the news, whatever we feel like that has our attention, caught our eye this week. Rob, kick this one off for us. What's on your radar right now?
Well, what's on my radar is, of course, it's going to be the weekend coming up, and I'll be able to be out on my boat. But I've got a good friend of mine coming up who's going to try my homebrew for the first time. And I'm super excited to do that. In particular, the reason I'm excited is because I started using an online app that allows me to basically forecast what the chemistry is going to be of the beer I make.
Nice.
By putting in the ingredients I'm going to add, and it tells me what it thinks what the color is going to be, what the alcohol levels are going to be, what's going to be the fragrance level, what's going to be the water composition, and then I can, after I brew the beer, then I can put data back in to say, here's what my experience was, and then it will help me adjust my recipes to align with what I'm doing. So in my ongoing quest to live to work, work to live, not vice versa, I'm really excited about taking elements of the whole data-driven thing and apply it to something fun like brewing my beer.
There you go.
Now, is this one small step for you, and you're going to get into distilling afterwards? Are we doing bourbon in 5 years? What are we doing here?
I obviously couldn't make a comment about that because home distilling is against the law from a tax point of view. But I am thinking about getting into essential oils.
All
okay.
right, fair enough.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I get it. All right.
AI at its finest, Rob. AI at its finest.
Man, my father-in-law could have used that. He went to the whole, home brewing phase for a while. I was always his guinea pig. I'd come over and be like, "Here, John, try this beer." And every now and then he would hit one that I'd be like, "This is really good," and he'd be like, "Yeah, I don't really know what I did to get there." He wasn't making notes. He wasn't actually copying down his recipe. And I'd be like, "Well, try to do that again." The next time he'd hand me something, and be like, "Okay, this is awful. No, sorry, try again." So he could have used something like that. That's a good idea.
Good stuff.
Luke, what's on your radar right now?
All right. Mine's not quite as fun as Rob's, but you probably have all read about brain-computer interfaces.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
And I'm geeking out on where this is going because you look at Neuralink and what it's doing for being able to use the mind for people with spinal injuries, ALS or other, for cursor control, robotic operations. But I go further with this, and I think the folks in this podcast certainly are IT people that understand the implications, but it's going to create a massive productivity boost in manufacturing, logistics, surgery, and other areas where in the future, your brain will control various things and augment your hands, your physical abilities. And that gets pretty wild when you look at where that can go. And I would just say, as you think about where we are today and what we've learned and how we've all evolved, but would you allow your brain to control a machine? Is that a line you're ready to cross? Because again, I think the opportunities are forthcoming.
Yeah, really good question. I see Rob there. He's like, "Oh yeah, I'm all in."
Rob's already drilling the hole in the back of his head right now.
Let's talk about the cybersecurity implications of having your brain hacked.
Jeez.
Stupid enough to let Microsoft give you an update.
I was thinking Rob's already invested here and he's brewing over on the other side with a little robot arm.
Yeah.
But either way.
Oh, good stuff. I like those. I like those like helpful practical applications, not just the I want to stick a chip in my brain and see what I can do, but like how can it honestly help people in legitimate ways?
Yeah.
All these technologies are fun because I think what's neat about the example you gave and the example I gave, we have to get used to the idea that these emerging technologies can change all the experiences we have if we're willing to rethink the way we already do what we already do.
Yeah.
They've been brewing beer for thousands of years. Now we're starting to think, how do I recreate things? Well, they've made recipe books for a long time,
right?
But forecasted models that, we're evolve. It's evolution. That's what it is. It doesn't always have to be revolution. And I think even in the example you gave, Luke, as long as it's not too revolution and it's more evolution, even that can be beneficial.
There you go. I agree.
Well, I think we're going to need this stuff for my what's on my radar because me and my love for robots and how we're getting closer and closer to the Terminator. Well, here's more advice.
That's the robot we want. But
we're going to need Luke's, tapping into our brains
so we can keep the robots from killing
superhuman
us.
Because here's the headline: New electronic skin brings human-like touch to robots.
Oh boy!
So researchers at
literally the Terminator now. Yeah, there we go.
Researchers at the University of Cambridge and the University of College of London have developed a breakthrough single-material electronic skin that equips robots with a human-like sense of touch. It can sense heat. It can cold. If you stab it, it can sense that. Multiple touch points. So what have they done? They melted down this stretchy electronic conductive gelatin thing that they've created, and through 32 electrodes placed at the wrist of a humanoid, it's collecting over 1.7 million pieces of information across the whole hand via 860,000 tiny little pathways in this conductive material. Have I scared you enough yet?
Yeah.
So we're feeding information, like real world information, into the robots. I'm with Luke. I need to be augmented so that I can go like above and beyond what the robots can do. No?
Well, I mean, I guess the next step is we just got to give them souls now. You know, like, I mean, come on. Like,
Oh, wow.
And certainly, Dean. You wonder whether or not the linkage to, if we can do it for a robot, and align it to that, and then we start to think about the relationship between the digital interfaces, silicon to silicon, the robot. But then we go silicon to biology. Imagine what that does from a medical perspective to
Crazy.
burn victims.
yeah.
Crazy.
Yep.
Yes.
See, again, there's a good practical use.
Exactly.
Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah. For sure.
It doesn't always have to be death robots.
It doesn't. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Absolutely.
Cool.
It's cool. Though.
Yeah.
It's really
easy,
cool.
It's easy to go there, and it makes a good movie, but maybe there's some good use cases that can come out of this.
So what's on your radar?
All right. Well, Rob, you have talked a few times about the upcoming Windows transitions, and with that comes the end of an iconic piece of internet or of computing history.
Oh.
The death of the blue screen of death.
Oh.
After 40 years, Windows is getting rid of the blue screen of death with their new Windows 11 iteration. It will now be the black screen of death, so still the BSOD.
Wow.
The message is going to change a little. So instead of having the old frowny face and your PC ran into a problem, blah, 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 now it's going to be a more simplistic, kind of looks like your standard like startup screen. It's just going to say your device ran into a problem and needs to restart. And then there will be maybe some additional little code, like not just like the coding stuff that only the coders are going to get, but maybe some stuff that'll give you, the consumer, a little bit better information about what happened and what you might need to do to fix that in the future.
Yeah.
But I guess we're just moving from the blue to the black screen.
The black screen.
But I mean, it's one of those things. Like, I mean, I haven't been on a Windows device, a PC in some time myself. I definitely don't miss the blue screen to death. But at the same time, it's one of those like, oh man, like that's been like an iconic part of my entire adult internet and computing life is that blue screen of death, and now it's not going to be there anymore. And I don't know. There's something actually a little weird and nostalgic about it when you don't have it anymore.
I think it's going to be,
and all they're doing is going back to the black screen of death, which we had in DOS.
yes,
exactly.
right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Skip right over this idea of self-healing, because who needs that?
Everything old is new again.
There you go.
Guess.
Old is new. That's right.
There you go.
Good stuff.
All right. That is what's on our radar this week. Luke Wilwerding, Rob Risany, thank you guys so much for being on the pod. We appreciate having you back. And this was a great conversation. So, hey, we'll see you back out there in the nation. Until next time, go out and, brew some beer with a good app and maybe actually get some good stuff out of it. Watch out for that electric skin. Maybe the next time you touch somebody, and they might be like, ow, and it's actually a deadly robot looking to kill you. I don't know. And if you still have a blue screen of death, take a moment and appreciate it before it's gone.
There you go.
We'll see you out there, folks, in the nation.